This is a video tutorial for scale bars within QGIS, specifically QGIS 3.10. And in this video, I'm going to cover making a scale bar and making sure that it's representing the layout page most effectively and efficiently as possible. So to get started here, I have two features. One is a 1-degree graticule, which is the grid here that we see, and then also the features of the state of Alaska. So these are the land mass features. So these two are inside a project called Alaska Demo right now, and I've also created a layout instance called Alaska Demo also. So the first thing I want to point out is that we're mapping in WGS 84, which is the default 4326 system within QGIS, and we can see that Alaska is elongated here. This is probably not the best system to be producing a map, but it's useful in understanding scale because I can use the graticule here to express a scale relationship between the scale bar and what's being mapped quite easily. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick with this for demonstration purposes. Let's head on over to the layout. So I'm in layout view now. I'm going to go ahead and draw out my first map instance. So it renders out the map. And if we look over here to map properties, at the very top of map properties, we see scale, map rotation, and the CRS. The CRS is just using the project, the main project CRS, which is WGS 84 4326. We know that. And it gives me a scale. And this is a numeric expression of the scale. What this is saying is that one map unit, one map unit on the page equals this number of units on the surface of the Earth, depicted in this map. Okay, so this particular number is a little cumbersome for a map viewer. It's less cumbersome when you're using a rounded number, say 1 to 5,000, 1 to 10,000. The USGS topo maps utilize the numeric scale of 1 to 24,000, which gives you one map unit to 24,000 ground units. So you can use the numeric expression alone when you're, quote, rounded. But when you get into these sort of custom scales or custom map pages that you're developing, it's better to go to a visual map scale in general, as a general comment. So we'll do that in just a second. But here's where we can manipulate scale. And there's two ways to manipulate scale on a map page. The first one's relatively rough, and I'm going to show you that one. So if we go over here and we go Move Item Content, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to move the feature to the center of my map window, or my layout box here. And I'm simply going to use my scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom out, okay, and zoom in. As we see this, we can see that the number on the scale main properties is changing also. Okay, zooming out, zooming back in. This is a little bit rough, so I can't get it exactly where I want it doing the scroll wheel approach. So I can come over here to the scale number representation, numeric representation, and I can change these numbers around. Digits to the right-hand side are very subtle movements. Digits to the left-hand side are much more aggressive. So here, let's change 11. Let's make 11 just 9. Okay, and then once I do that, I'll click on the map page. And you can see it brings my feature a little bit closer to me. Let's make this 8. That's pretty good. Let's try 5. Okay, 5's a little too close. I'm going to bring it down to 6. 6 is pretty good. So then I'll just move Alaska over a little bit, and that really fits my whole working page here quite well. I'll kind of bump this up just a little bit. Okay. That's good. I like that positioning. Once I have my positioning set up, I can go ahead and lock my map at that point if I want to. And then you can start to think about your scale bar. So the scale of this particular map is 1 unit to 6914075 units on the surface of the Earth. We haven't rotated the map in any way, and we're using the project CRS. The next thing I want to do is drop in my scale bar. So I come over here to the left-hand side, add new scale bar to the layout. Okay. This gives the parameters here before you drop it in. So the height is pretty high. I'm going to make this 50. It makes it a little bit smaller box. And I say OK. And then it gives me my scale bar. This scale bar is currently transparent, so I can move it around pretty much anywhere. It doesn't have a background. you can produce a background color under the background component underneath item properties. I'm not going to do that right now. We're going to do a little test before we go much farther here. I want to make sure that this scale bar is representing the actual units correctly on the main map frame. So how would I do that? Well, I know that the graticule that I see here, the square boxes, are 1 degree by 1 degree. So it's a 1 degree graticule. So the distance across each one of these boxes is 1 degree. I can come over to my scale units and I can say map units. And we know that the map units are currently in degrees because we're in WGS 84. And I can just simply drag this on top of my graticule, and I can see, if I place it just correctly, that it is exactly at 5 and then 10. The breaks are correct on my scale bar. So here's 1 graticule, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 degrees, 10 degrees. So it's representing the space accurately and correctly. What I can do now is I can go back to scale units and choose a unit that makes sense. So meters, feet, and yards is going to make sense for mapping an urban environment where we're interested in the distance of, say, a block. Maybe a neighborhood level. It's not particularly good at a state level, so I might want to use kilometers or miles. Let's go ahead and use kilometers. So I click on kilometers. The default scale bar is typically going to be broken into 2 segments. So there'll be a left and a right-hand segment. You can change the segment counts under segments. So say I wanted to have the left-hand side, I might want to have more tranches, okay, where I could show segments visually on the left-hand side that are smaller than on the right-hand side. You can also just simply keep it at 0. Okay. I can change the display location within the box itself. So as I move the box margin around, we can see that I'm increasing it and it's, quote, centering it. This is really good if you have a map background that you're concerned about, or you want to make the scale bar box not transparent and you want to place the bar within that space. We can also change fonts. So if we go to fonts, we can drop down and say recent fonts, open sans. I can change around some other variables, position and size within the map page itself. I can also importantly change the style of the box. So currently I'm on single style. I can go to a double box. I can go to line ticks differently. Line ticks up, line ticks down. So there's some visual options that you have for your scale bar. So as I change the scale of the map page itself, so remember this is kind of the scale that I want to be at, but let's just watch to conclude here how the scale bar changes proportionately. So I'm going to click off my lock bar on map 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom, I'm going to make it active and zoom out. And let's see what happens with the scale bar. So I'm zooming out. So we can see the scale bar represents the space accurately. It's making the scale visual notation much smaller as we zoom away from the feature. Let's see what happens as I come closer. That scale bar gets bigger because all of a sudden the distance to go from 0 to 1,000 kilometers is increasing. And it just keeps increasing as I zoom into the feature itself. So this is demonstrating the fact that the scale bar is active. The scale bar is relative to what's being shown on the map frame itself. And you want to utilize that to your benefit in that you can always create a new scale bar based on whatever scale you're at within the map frame itself. So if I wanted to draw out a different style or just get another map scale bar, I could easily do that. Okay, so I would just click on delete that one, and then as I place the new one, it's going to snap to the actual scale that's being represented currently in the map frame. So hopefully this video gives you a sense of the scale bar relationship to the features within the main map frame, and then also the manipulations that you can do under item properties for your scale bar. So again, you have main properties, you have units, segments, display, fonts and colors, and some positioning options too.